No doubt.
Yeah, so we were just setting up everything.
All right, cool.
I mean, we're good now, right?
Yeah, I'm ready whenever y'all are.
Okay.
Well, I'm ready.
All right, y'all set it off, man.
All right,
All right.
word. All right. So, welcome to the very first episode of Conversations with Mools and Mel.
Yep.
This is Mools,
This is Mel right here, obviously.
and we're right here today, live or pre-recorded, but live for y'all, with a very special guest. He goes by the name of Ramon Kilpatrick, aka Kill,
Yes, sir.
and he is a man of many talents, and we're here to discuss that and much more with him today. You can always get these episodes a week early on Melvin's Patreon, patreon.com/Melvin Birch. But today, it's all about Kill, and he's here, our very first guest. And yeah,
We're
man,
thankful. We're
it's
thankful
good to
that you're
have you
here
on.
because it's the first one ever.
Yo,
He
bro.
told me about you. You sounded like a real interesting, multi-dimensional guy. So
I guess that's a good way to put me. But yo, I just appreciate y'all. I mean, I'm touched and blessed that I'm the first guest. That means a lot. So I appreciate y'all, man, for real.
Appreciate you, man. So let's set it off. Let's not waste any time. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the audience know, if they're not familiar with you, what they should know about you.
All right. Long story short, like you said, my real name is Rahman Kilpatrick. Nobody could pronounce Rahman coming up in Philly, so they took Kill from the Kilpatrick and just ran with that, and it just stuck. And from Philly, I'm out here in DC and the DMV now, out here in Maryland and DC and Virginia. And for the past 19 years, have been putting together after school programs out in Southeast DC, some of the toughest hoods in DC. Working with the neighborhoods of kids who nobody wants to work with. The kids who are selling drugs, stealing cars, killing each other, and trying to convince them and show them other ways that they should be trying to live life. So that's the 9 to 5. And then after that, I do a podcast, Apartment 5B, on hip hop and R&B, and on I say it's music, love, and life. So it's a little bit of everything. I'm a producer. I'm a screenwriter. I'm a barber. You know what I mean? Well, you know what? I won't say that. I cut hair. I try to be very picky with the words I choose to use. I never want to disrespect people who went to school and learned a trade. I was self-taught, so I don't want to ever disrespect the people who did their due diligence to get what they had to get. So I cut hair, and one of my side hustles is cutting hair for my kids if they improve their grades, and for men in Southeast DC, if they have job interviews coming up, I give them free haircuts for that too. So yeah, I'm sure I'm leaving out 20 other things I do. Those are like, and I'm a husband and a dad and all that other good stuff too. But yeah.
Word. That's dope, admirable, definitely honorable.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
And that was one of the things that, Kill, I noticed that you were doing this haircut thing for the kids. They bring you their report cards and, when they're getting ready for job interviews. And I just think that's such a dope thing that you're doing. That's one of the many reasons, honestly, I wanted to have you on, because, there's a lot of people out there, especially in this day and age on the internet. You have a lot of people who say, well, I make beats, I rap, I do all this stuff. But what else do you do? What do you do that can make an imprint on your community and do good for your community as well? Give back, not just musically, but, just doing that kind of outreach is very important. And I think, it's very, very admirable. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Apartment 5B, because you're always throwing up clips from the show. They're very entertaining, very spirited debates about hip hop, R&B, just the culture at large and in general. And we wanted to bring a topic to you as well. But yeah, please tell us a little bit more about Apartment 5B and everything you're doing with that, because I think that's super dope. Sometimes I just see the clips.
Right. Apartment 5B, it got started. Me and my brother Ev would just be talking hip hop all day. You know what I mean? And just, at the end of the day, we'd always be like, man, somebody needs to hear these conversations. You know what I mean? Like, these conversations are too dope just to stay between us. And, we came across using the same platform you guys use with Google Hangout. And we started it, and it started off as called Live from the Writer's Bench, you know, and then some of the people kind of fell off from that. And then I hate coming up with names. So when that kind of disintegrated, I came up with the Corner Radio. And to me, that was corny as hell, but it's all I had at the time. And then 2 years ago, my mother-in-law passed away, and I wanted to do a dedication to her. Her building in Harlem was apartment 5B. So I just thought that would be a dope dedication, you know, to her, to name the podcast that. And I mean, it's a great podcast, man. It's a blessing because the people who are on it with me are so incredible. And the bulk of them I've never met face to face. You know, it's one of the reasons why I love Twitter. You meet such great people. I've been on Twitter for almost 10 years now, you know, and some of my closest friends I've never even met face to face, you know, but we talk all the time. And I always tell people apartment 5B, because, you know, sometimes people are like, Kill, I want to get on it, but I'm no hip hop guru like y'all. And I'm like, bro, to me, there's no right or wrong answer. Like, to me, that's what makes apartment 5B different. We're not here to debate hip hop. We're here to discuss it. Then the reason why I say that is because the debate, that's what I would do at college when I went to Morgan back in the 90s. And it's like, oh, you think Nas is the best. I think Big is the best. So now I'm going to try to convince you to listen to me. And I'm 45. Don't nobody got time for that. It's like at the end of the day, dog, if I convince you Big is better than Nas, do I get a check? Do I get a day off from work? You know, do I get anything? I don't. Well, I'm all about that bag right now. So, you know, so my thing is, if you think Nas is better, I'm more so interested in why. You know, so that to me is what apartment 5B is. That's why I always tell people you could be a young dude just learning about hip hop or somebody who's been in this culture 50 years. There's no right or wrong answer to me. You know, my only thing will be let's discuss why you think Nas is better than Big. And I can tell you why I think, you know, Big is better than Nas. I may send you some songs. You may send me some songs. We respect each other. We listen. You know, I may turn around and say, yo, you're right. You know what I mean? Or you may vice versa. But the conversation doesn't start with, I want to prove I'm right and you're wrong. And I feel like that's how people look at debates. And that's why Twitter can get messy and all that stuff, because there's this I'm right and you're wrong attitude. Whereas I'm like, my pastor taught me a long time ago, never be the smartest person in the room. So it's like, I want to always keep dope and smart people around me. I learned there's not an episode. I've been doing these podcasts for almost 3 years now. There's never been an episode where I don't learn something. You know what I mean? So it's like I tell my kids all the time, I'm not here to teach you. We're here to learn from each other. You know what I mean? So, but that's it. I mean, I love it because every week we try to come up with topics that aren't time stamped. And what I mean by that is we're not talking about whatever the hot topic is in hip hop right now. You know what I mean? So, because if we're talking about whatever's hot right now, you're not going to watch that episode 2 years from now. You know what I mean? But one of the episodes like we're doing this week is, what are your top 5 hip hop crews? And what are your top 5 slept on hip hop crews? And then in that, let's say we're talking about Wu-Tang, who are your top 5 favorite members in Wu-Tang? And then what are the top 5 songs that have come out of that? So the thing is like with being on the podcast, the only thing is you got to do homework. You know, you got to do some work. This isn't a podcast you can kind of just jump on and freestyle it, you know, because I want people to think, because a lot of times people don't think, you know, they just kind of say, this person is my favorite rapper. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. Well, what are your attributes? What are your top 5 attributes of a rapper? And they're like, I don't know. I never thought about it. So that would be a show. Like, what are the top 5 things you look for in an MC? Because I feel like if we can, for instance, somebody may say, you know what? Drake is one of my top dopest MCs ever. Now, that would start an argument for me because I'm like, I believe you have to write your own rhymes. You can't have a ghostwriter. But maybe somebody else, that's not important to them. So see, now we done cut out a whole argument because now I understand why, if that's not one of your attributes, okay, I get why Drake is in the top 5. So there's no reason for us to waste 3 hours arguing back and forth because I already understand why you feel that way. You know, so I always call it's a thinking man's podcast. You can't, you know, I was on the block in Philly a while ago and I was asking one of my people, like, yo, what's your attributes? He's like, man, I don't care nothing about no attributes. Like, just nice or not. Like, that's all I care about. And I'm like, and this is the reason why you're not on my podcast. Because, you know, I want you to think about that. You know, people get on me all the time because Black Thought isn't one of my favorite MCs, but I always tell people I'm in this. One of my top attributes is storytelling. And I just don't feel that
you have many stories at all.
Right. You know, and I mean, I think that's it. And I mean, I would catch hell for that. But I'm like, I actually did a Black Thought challenge. This is how bad it got. I was like, you know what? everybody's getting on me. Give me 15 songs where for 2 to 3 verses, Black Thought spoke about one specific topic. And everybody was like, oh, that's too hard. I was like, you know what? I'm bored at work right now. I'll do one right now for Common. You know what I mean? Did it in 20 minutes. There you go. There's 15 Common songs. I can tell you what he's talking about. I was like, you know what? I still ain't got shit to do. Let me talk about Guru. I gave you 15 Guru songs where he's talking about a topic. So it can be done, you know. And then my asterisk for thought was it can't be about a girl. He'll tell you about the silent treatment or the Hypnotic or You Got Me or Break You Off. So I was like, no songs about a girl. And I did the same for Common. None of his girl songs, none of Guru's, you know, songs about girls. So it's things like that. And I think a lot of people, you know, they just heard Thought's not one of my top 5 favorite rappers and they just went crazy. But I'm like, if you really sit down and listen, he really doesn't tell stories. You know, that's no diss on Thought. He's an incredible MC. He's from Philly. I'm from Philly. I got nothing but love and respect for the Roots. But for me, that's where he just falls short as an MC. Word.
You know what? While I'm thinking about it, because like I just want to say you're an excellent guest because I feel like we're on the same wavelength with a lot of things. Like, especially like you were talking about the Thinking Man's podcast. We're exactly the same way. Like, as far as breaking down arguments to like, all right, we understand all this is subjective. We've heard that like music is opinionated. You explain to me if you can break down fundamentally to like the core why you feel a certain way. I can accept that as long as you can explain to me.
Right.
Because we're always going to differ in opinions. But there's so many other places. For
example, I think the Black Album is whack.
Okay.
He thinks the Black Album is whack. Now, me growing up, I'm 26.
Okay.
And I kind of my introduction to Jay was through my dad, and I would say probably starting around the Blueprint 1.
Okay.
So that was kind of my introduction.
Right.
And I would say the Blueprint 1. He played 2 around me a little bit, but the Black Album was the one he played most often.
Okay.
And I thought it was great. Now, what's dope about me and Moles is we talk about albums all the time. Like we have like a system of like, you know, how we rate or rank albums and everything. I actually go through entire artist discographies because I knew, like, before meeting Moles, like, I listened to rap my whole life, but he has a wealth of knowledge that I just didn't have. So, you know, it was a challenge to me. It's like, let me go back and actually, because I'm a bit like, I enjoy being a historian and listening to things that were before my time or out of my element. So I went through Jay's entire discography from top to bottom. Because like I heard, you know, like Reasonable Doubt is in the canon. Like it's a great album. I never heard it. And it's like, well, I have no excuse why not hear it. I want to hear it. So I listen to every Jay album because Moles would always tell me like, yo, the Black Album is probably dope to you because you didn't hear what came before.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, all right, well, let me hear it. And then I was able to come back after running through Reasonable Doubt, you know, Blueprint 1, Volume 1, 2, and 3. And it's like, okay. He would always say Do-Rag Jay. He was like, after Do-Rag Jay, he kind of like got like, I guess like corny or whatever and kind of like dad rap, like, you know, a little bit.
There's something crystallized with me with Jay because I didn't come in at Reasonable Doubt. I came in probably where most Jewish kids from the suburbs came in with Jay, who are my age. I'm 32, Volume 2.
Hard Knock
Life. Right. So I came in with Hard Knock Life, and I was a super fan, like super duper Jay fan from Hard Knock Life until Blueprint 2. I loved. Like, it was maybe too many tracks, but I still loved it because it was Jay still like in his element. I felt like Black Album, if it was his last album, I wouldn't feel so harshly towards it, even though I think compared to everything else in the catalog, it's whack. It's just that the fact that he didn't retire and the whole album is about retiring, about leaving the game, and you know, it's like he ends it with My First Song.
Right.
You know, and Allure is about leaving the game.
Right.
All these different songs. And he comes back 3 years later. He couldn't help himself. And he came back and he made a whack album at that.
Right.
You know,
I think the other thing with Jay is I always call Jay Satan because he's like the trickster. You know what I mean? Like Satan is like, did God tell you can't eat from that tree? Nah, he really did. Because that's Jay. Jay is all about marketing. Jay, I mean, so it was like, this is my last album. This is my last tour. And it's so funny because Jay was just at Webster Hall up in NYC. And I just always just laugh whenever I hear about another Jay show because I'm like, weren't you supposed to retire like 20 years ago? Like, I swear to God, that was the whole thing of why everybody was, you sold out Madison Square Garden because you was retiring, and like you've been on like 10 more tours, you know, since then. And even when Jay was doing the Magna Carta album, I remember seeing the commercial during the NBA Finals, and it was Rick Rubin in the studio, and it was Pharrell and everybody. And I remember the whole vibe on Twitter was, oh my God, his album's gonna be crazy. He got Timbaland, Rick Rubin's doing beats, Pharrell's doing beats. And then the next day I was like, wait a second, y'all. He never told us they were doing beats. He just showed them in the video and we ran with it. Right. So, I mean, I think Jay is just the master manipulator almost. You know what I mean? It's like, and again, people say I hate Ninth Wonder. Nothing could be further from the truth. But the thing is, even with the story with Ninth, that a lot of people don't realize with the Black Album is during that time on OK Player, which was the Roots' like message board, they were killing Jay at the time. You know, nobody who was a backpacker like Jay-Z. It was like he was whack. But everybody loved Little Brother, Ninth Wonder's little group. I mean, not little group, Ninth Wonder's group, Little Brother. And what happened was Jay at that time was getting with Amir Quest from the Roots, and they were doing an Unplugged album. So they were talking a lot. And Jay was on the message board seeing how much the backpackers didn't mess with him. So what did Jay do? Jay invited Ninth Wonder to the studio. Ninth Wonder, from what I've heard, paid him 200 beats. He didn't want any of them. He basically said, just go loop up this R. Kelly song, and that's what we're going to run with. That right there is marketing, because as soon as it got the OK Player, Ninth Wonder was like, Ninth Wonder's on the Black Album, then all those backpackers all of a sudden supported Jay. Because here's the thing. Jay could have had Young Guru, Kanye, just anybody loop up that R. Kelly joint. You know what I mean? He could have been like, yo, just loop this up for me real quick. But he needed Ninth Wonder, because that's what got him back in the good graces of the backpack community. And that's no diss on Ninth. I never want anybody, I mean, that's just the story. It's just, I always tell people, I don't want to argue opinions. Let's talk facts. That's the fact. You know, so I know if I get invited to the studio with Jay-Z and I play 500 beats and he don't like none, he gonna be like, well, Kill, it was nice meeting you. You know, Jay is not gonna be like, okay, well, I like you so much, Kill, and what you do for the community, man, just loop this up. No, that was all strategic. So at the end of the day, I love Jay. He's a great business mind. He knows how to manipulate people. And yeah, that's Jay. That is definitely Jay.
Working the marks, just
yeah,
like Hogan, you know.
It was a pander. It was a pander because he wanted that validation from backpackers. Because I don't know whether it was the hip hop inside of him that wouldn't allow him to be sort of unaccepted by this group. I don't know what it was.
But here you go. Even if it's not the hip hopper in you, guess what? Backpackers spend money. So I need practice.
I mean, they haven't re-released Jay Donuts 50 times because they don't spend money.
Right. So that's the thing, that he understood that all the backpackers said, you know what? We're buying this Black Album to support Ninth. They weren't saying that like we're buying it to support. Jay don't care why you buy his album as long as you buy the album. And he accomplished what he did. And at the end of the day, it did great things for Ninth. Ninth Wonder's career, I don't think, would be where it is right now without that opportunity. You know what I mean? So that's why I always tell people, it's no diss on Ninth or nothing like that. But that's just the way it went down. And it was business, and it worked out great for Ninth. And God bless him, you know?
Word. Speaking of OK Player, I was actually... I think that may be where we first met.
Okay.
Because I had posted a beat tape in 2009 called Who Are We?
Okay.
And I believe you found it on there. You tweeted about it. I saw your tweet. I followed you. So I've been following you for almost 10 years now.
Wow, that's dope.
I wanted to ask you about this situation. When I first had started following you, there was something with a beat that you had made, ended up on an MOP album. I think it was the album they put out in like 2010, 2011. Yeah, Foundation album.
Yeah.
And there was an issue with you not being properly credited.
Yeah. It was crazy.
You ended up getting the credit, but retroactively.
Yeah, it was, long story short, man, I'm the biggest MOP fan in the world. And they were in Baltimore. I went to school in Morgan State in Baltimore, so it was MOP Joe Buttons. I like passed out like 100 beat CDs to them. Like I was like, I'm making sure they get my beats. I left them under their windshield wipers, on their cars, like on their promo vans. I was giving them the bodyguards, hype men, whatever. That's 2009, 2010. I'm coming home from work. I'm listening to the album, and it starts off with the Bring the Pain sample from Jay's second album. You know, Here Come the Pain. And I was like, oh man, they used that, and the beat started playing. I was like, wait a second, that's my beat. Like that's not the sample. Like, no, that's my beat. That's my drums. And at the time, I thought maybe somebody stole the beat from me and then sold it to MOP. But my man hit me up and was like, nah, it says on Wikipedia, Fizzy Womack with his little Fame's alias. It said produced by Fizzy Womack. So at that time, and this is going to be a story to explain why I believe everything happens for a reason and why I try to make positive out of negative situations, is because I literally went to OK Player and this other site, Kevin Nottingham, to kind of just tell the story. I didn't expect anybody to pick up on it. At that time, I only used the internet for just Hotmail. Like literally, I was never on Black Planet, MySpace, none of that stuff. It literally was just, I just email stuff and download music. And my man was like, yo, man, by tomorrow, I think the whole world is going to know the story. And I was like, dog, ain't nobody going to care about this. And by tomorrow, the whole world knew the story. The guy, Kevin Nottingham, was like, yo, we got so much traffic on the website. It took down the servers. And, you know, by the end of, in 48 hours, I was on the phone with Lazy Lays, their manager, with Little Fame and everything like that. And the blessing is that if it wasn't, and Lazy said this, he said, Kill, you know, the crazy thing about this situation is you got more press from this than if you would have gotten credited for the album. You know what I mean? So, you know, he was like, yo, that's bugging, you know, because I had people in my ear like, yo, you should sue MOP. I'm like, dog, it's MOP. Like, come on. Like, do I really want to be the dude who's known for MOP? You know, I got family in Brooklyn. I can't go. I'm not MOP. And then on top of that, you know, again, not that I would, but it's not like this is Jay-Z. It's not like these dudes are selling billions of records, you know. So, you know, and it worked. I mean, at the end of the day, I got the credit, but more importantly, that's what showed me like the World Wide Web, what that really was about. Because I had producers emailing me from literally other countries, Yugoslavia, different countries saying, yo, I got jacked too. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what showed me like, wow, this internet thing really is worldwide. You know what I mean? And again, this is 2009. So, you know, for me, it was still relatively new because I was so old school. I'm 45. So, you know, I was kind of Fred Flintstone with the internet, but it was just like, wow, like, yo, this is really worldwide. Like, so, and again, like if it wasn't for that situation, that's what got me on Twitter. That's what made me start my website, We'll Make Beats for Food. Like, that's what got me into the social media game. That kind of invigorated me to really start making beats because I never stopped making beats, but I had been married. I had a daughter. So, you know, I'm making beats for fun. I'm not really shopping them anymore. But then when it was like, damn, if MOP gonna jack me for a beat, like my stuff must be official. Right. You know what I mean? So it was like, okay, let me kind of get back at it. So it was a crazy situation, but like I said, you gotta make, you know, you gotta make something special out of a bad situation. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, if it wasn't for that, we probably would have never met because I would have been on Twitter. You know, like I literally wouldn't even be apartment 5B. There would be none of that right now if it wasn't for that negative situation happening. So it turned out to be a blessing.
Time here. We're part of fan. I won't say for who.
Right.
I'll just say for a rapper who we won't discuss. So yeah, I met him through there, and it's safe to say I'm not much of a fan of that guy anymore. But
I think I know who you're referring to. Yeah.
But here's the thing: I made a lot of, you know, connections out of that.
Right.
I made a lot of friends out of that. So you got to always look at every situation for that positive that can come out of it, because oftentimes you'll get a situation that's not a great situation, and the outcome from that situation is greater than if the situation had never happened in the first place. Exactly. That's why, you know, you just got to let God do what God does.
Yep, and that's exactly right. Because like I said, somebody else may have said, man, they stole my beat. That's it. Like, forget it. You know, I quit. Like, this industry is whack, and never, you know, posted it. Like I said, I posted it on OK Player and KevinNottingham.com. Like, that's it. Like, I didn't, you know what I mean? And I didn't expect people to even react to it. But I think the more upsetting thing than anything was the fact that so many other people had said that they had beats stolen from them. You know what I mean? So it just kind of dulled the game a little bit. Like, and I mean, when they're naming rappers, like I had other people tell me MOP stole beats from them. So it was like, wow, like, you know, it kind of tarnishes. And again, I don't know if these stories are true or not. Everybody has their definition of stole. Maybe you played a sample for them and they ended up taking the sample. Maybe they jacked the whole beat. I don't know. But it was just so crazy to hear so many people, you know, say, yo, we had a beat stolen too, you know. And I think the blessing was that for me, this is the first time in hip hop when there's been an accusation about a beat being stolen and it being kind of worked out. Like Fame said, Kill is right. I didn't do the beat. He did the beat. You know, Norm, I've heard stories for ages. Oh, Dre stole my beat and Timbaland stole my beat and this person stole my beat. But you never hear those producers like react to that, you know. So it was just dope for Fame to say, yo, he right. I didn't stole. I didn't, you know, do the beat. Kill did it. So, you know, yeah, so it was a crazy situation, but it was definitely a crazy 48 to 72 hours because I did not expect a quarter of what happened, like literally.
Yeah, you know, on that topic, like, because we discussed the internet all day long, I feel like there was definitely a point in time that like kind of came quicker than anyone was ready for, when like the adage used to be like, oh, the internet isn't real life. Right. I feel like for a time that was true. And then suddenly, like seemingly overnight, it's like, nah, this is real life. Like I tell Mools all the time, like, I think the shift happened when the internet turned from like a tool to a destination. Because when I was coming up, I'm like old enough to remember dial-up, like using dial-up. Right. And like people only got on the internet when they had to like look up something or do something. Right. And then over time, it turned into the destination, meaning people get on the internet to just be on the internet. Right. Like because of social media, message boards, forums, chat rooms, things like that. So like the internet became like the centrifugal, I think I'm using that word, the centrifugal force for like everything. Right. Rather than just a tool that people use to get things done. Yeah. And I mean, for better or worse, like the better is obviously we can do things like this. Right. The worst is like the just like storm on Twitter that's raging all day, every day, you know?
Right.
So it's the gift and a curse.
No blueprint. Talking about that with, you know, when it comes to doing his podcast, making, you know, a debate or discussion about something not personal, but on the merits of the work that you're discussing. Right. And it seems like today, you know, on Twitter, I remember during the Drake and Pusha shit, like, oh my God, like, I mean, it's not about preferring Drake or Pusha. You can prefer either or. I'm not going to call you an idiot either way, right? You know, but it's the emotional attachment that people, because of social media, because I don't remember this that much in the forum days. I was on OK Player back in the day, spitkicker.com, bunch of these sites. I don't remember people being so emotional about this stuff in the way that they treat these artists now like they're a sports team.
Right. And I mean,
same with like politics now.
It's a piece like that. And I think because I was telling my peoples, like growing up in the 80s, like I love Big Daddy Kane. Like Big Daddy Kane was like the greatest thing since sliced bread for me. You know, I always joke and say he's like the Rosa Parks of dark-skinned dudes, because back in the 80s, like literally, like it was like nobody wanted to rock with me back in the 80s. It's like, oh, Kill, you too dark. You nice, but you too dark. And then like Kane came out and it was like, hey, we want dark-skinned dudes now. So Kane is like the Rosa Parks of dark-skinned dudes for me. And I mean, I had a high top fade in high school and they used to call me Big Daddy Kill. But when Kane came out with that third album, Taste of Chocolate, and it was whack, we called it whack. And that was okay. We were still fans of Kane. You know, like I said, this dude is my favorite rapper, but it was okay to be like, oh, he dropped the dud on that one. We'll see what he comes back with next time. Whereas now you have, and I don't even know where Stan and fan gets, you know, mixed up, but I was just talking about this today. I love Griselda, West Side Gun, Benny the Butcher, Conway. And I gave when Benny's album Tana Talk 3 dropped, I gave it a 4.5. I give it a 5 now, but I gave it a 4.5. And somebody got at me on Twitter and said, Kill, I thought you rock with Griselda. I was like, I do. I love him. He was like, but you gave it a 4.5.
Like, that's good, like, though.
Yeah. I mean, like, yo, that's a half a mic from being perfect. And he's like, but you didn't give it a 5. And see, that's where it changes. You have these fans now that are like, everything has to be great. Like, you cannot say something is a 4.5. It has to be a 5. Everything. And my man Vern, who's on the show, said it best. He was like, dog, the 3 women I love more than anything in my life, my mother, my daughter, my wife, love them to death. But they don't do everything they do, I don't like. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to not like something, but not anymore, because then you're not a fan. You know what I mean? Or I'm a Sixers fan. I'm very hard on Ben Simmons, and people are like, oh, Kill, you ain't no real fan. No, I am. He needs a jump shot for us to win a championship. You know, and me saying he doesn't have a jump shot isn't slander. It's not dissing him. It's just the truth. But you have these fans that are like, no, you have to say, you know, your team hired a bad coach. You can't say that. You have to be like, no, but he'll work. You know, no, it's okay. I had to tell a dude the other day, please look up the definition of slander because y'all are using the word wrong. You know,
Thank you.
really are. Like, I said something like, somebody said Doom was the greatest rapper ever. MF Doom. And I said, well, I don't agree with that. I think he's dope, but I don't think he's the GOAT. And he's like, oh, Kill, here you go with your slander. Slander would be me saying Doom sucks, he's whack, he makes whack out. That's slander. Me saying he's not the greatest rapper ever is not slander. You know what I mean? And it's funny you were talking about Twitter because in 2019, I kind of had to take back my timeline, you know, like literally set up rules because people were like, oh, old head, you just hate. And I'm like, stop calling me a hater. Like literally, if you call me a hater, I'm blocking you. So learn, just like I tell my kids, learn to use words. Let's find another word. Just because I agree with you doesn't mean I'm hating. And thank God 2019 I haven't been called haters. I have to rack of people. Or if people try to insult, if I don't agree with you, they may be like, oh, Kill, you just a casual fan. Because I'm not gonna say that to you. Just because you don't agree with me, I'm not gonna say, oh, you just don't know what you're talking about. Or you don't see, that's what makes Twitter not fun. So I just get rid of all that. You know, and then I can have great discussions with people who want to really think and use different words and use your vocabulary. Like, yo, it's okay if I don't think Doom is the greatest rapper ever. It's okay. Like,
there can only be one greatest rapper ever, by the way.
Which is who? Who you got?
Oh, no. I'm saying there can only be one.
Right. Okay. I thought.
And the difference, I think there's also a difference between favorite and greatest. Like, for instance, DJ Quick is my favorite because he's an all-around musician. Mm-hmm. His shit is funky as hell. I still listen to it to this day, probably more than I listen to anything else. So just based off the frequency of how much I listen to him, I know he's my favorite.
Right.
But he's not the best MC. He's not even in the top 20.
Right.
You know, because I'm just, you know, and as someone, I've rapped for like 12 years of my life. I know what MCing is.
Right.
And I can say, like, another guy that's in my top 5, Devin the Dude. Man, Devin the Dude's like, I would even argue barely a rapper.
Right.
You know, singing half the time. But I love his music. I love the vibe of the music. So
see, the fact that you can separate the two says a lot. Because most people can't do that. I mean, here's the thing. I was in the laundromat in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta in 1997. And I was in the laundromat with my man Scorp, who owned it. And he was like, yo, Kill, the dopest rapper ever alive is Smooth B. And I'm like, you mean Smooth B from Nice and Smooth? Like, word? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, you mean he's your favorite? He was like, no, he is the greatest. You know what I mean? And I was just like, yo, dog, you bugging. Like, Smooth B, I like Nice better. I like Greg Nice better than Smooth B, you know. But again, most people can't differentiate the greatest and your favorites. You know, one of my favorite players is Jason Williams, White Chocolate, one of my favorite players ever in the NBA. I would never tell you he's the greatest player ever, you know, or he's in the top 20. Like, no, he's just a favorite. And I always say on Twitter, music speaks to us. You know what I mean? And music speaks to people differently. You know, that's why for me, I try my best to never diss anybody's opinion because I'm like, yo, if Doom speaks to you like that, that's dope. Like at 45, I'm past wanting to be right. I'm more concerned now about the culture surviving. So people say all the time, well, Kill, you're not a big Ninth Wonder fan. I'm not. But guess what? He's making dope music. He's doing boom bap. He's not selling out, and he's keeping my culture moving. God bless him. It doesn't matter if I'm not a big fan of his like that. You know, he's keeping the culture moving. So to me, if you're keeping the culture moving and you're making music and you're doing great stuff, even if it doesn't speak to me, who cares? As long as the culture is continuing to move. I think so many people now are just like you said, you know, you have this stuff where Beyonce has, what is it, the Beehive, or, you know, Rihanna has the Navy and Nicki Minaj has the Barbies. Like, when I was growing up, we didn't have those. Nobody was like, oh, we're the Rakims or we're the Kanans. Like, you know, we're the KRSs. Like, no, it was just like, yo, we're fans of them. You know what I mean? But we didn't, like, this Beehive stuff, this is a whole new level of fandom, standom, whatever you want to call it, to where they really ride for you. Like, I think they may ride for Beyonce more than they would ride for their own family members. You know what I mean? And one of my homegirls, Portia's on the show, said it. It's almost like they praise them. Like, they look at them as a god. And I think that's where it kind of gets very messy, because why are you looking at a Drake or Beyonce as a god? Like you're literally looking up to them. Like you're literally not technically following them on Twitter. You're literally following them. Like, you know, if they say do this, you do that. And it started with Jay. Like I used to always joke, just like in The Wiz, when they said, hey, the color's red and everything turned red. And it was like the color's green. Like that was Jay. Like Jay was like, yo, jerseys are whack. Don't wear basketball jerseys no more. Wear button-ups. And everybody stopped wearing everybody, like these Mitchell and that's $300 a pop jerseys just got thrown in the back of the closet. And it was like, yo, wear button-ups because Jay said so. You know what I mean? And you know what Jay say in that song? He said, Cristal is there, so now they ask me what we drinking. Like niggas is at the club, like, Jay, what are we drinking now? Like, is Cristal good or is this what do say? Like
the original trendsetter in rap to the point where people were literally following his every move, his every trend, everything that he was doing, they were emulating. And who followed in his footsteps? Kanye West.
Right.
The new cult leader at this point, literally and figuratively, you know, where he with his Sunday services, whatever the hell that's going to end up as.
Right.
You know, some way to monetize people's cult of personality with him and their obsession with him. But he became the next harbinger of, you know, hey, I'm going to be the trendsetter in hip hop.
Right.
And for years, it was like, okay, once Kanye came in with the backpack and the Louis Vuitton and the polo, everyone at first, they were kind of saying he's different, he's weird, he beats 50 in the sales competition or whatever. And then all of a sudden you get Lupe, you get Big Sean, you start the floodgates open up for nerds.
The scale tipped, and then
the paradigm completely shifts from gangster rap to artistic nerd rap, whatever you want to call it. And you could say it's trying to maybe shift back again now in that other direction.
And the thing is when Ye dropped, I loved Ye because again, I grew up in the 80s and hip hop in the 80s was like, it was like cable TV is now. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is if I wanted some gangster rap, I had NWA. But then if I just wanted some fun-loving rap, I had Kid and Play, I had Salt and Pepper, I had Kwame. You know, if I wanted some kind of, you know, hippie rap, I had De La, I had Tribe, like, you know, and then it just kind of just became just like all gangster rap. So for me, I like Jay just for the simple fact that, like you said, he opened the floodgates to just, you could be a normal dude. You know, I always look at it and say, hey, I'm not mad at hip hop right now that maybe 3 of the biggest rappers with Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick, none of them are gangsters. None of them are talking about killing anybody. Nobody's talking about drugs being sold. Like, that's dope to me, you know, because for a while, the biggest rappers were, you know, and again, it affects me more because I work with kids. So I see how kids emulate what they hear. Like when I was growing up in 87, 88, you know, when KRS dropped My Philosophy, I remember telling my dad, yo, I want to be a philosopher. I didn't know what the hell that was, but KRS was a philosopher. God damn it, I want to be a philosopher. You know, I remember for like a day, I was like, I'm not eating meat because KRS don't eat meat. You know what I mean? So, you know, but it literally was like anything rappers do, it was like that was the cool thing to do, you know, and I've seen it go from me wanting to be a philosopher to now my kids wanting to be pimps. I remember when 50 came out with PIMP and all my kids were like, Mr. Kill, I want to be a pimp. And I was just like, damn, like this is what my culture is now doing to kids, that they want to be pimps. You know, I remember wanting to be a philosopher. You know, people don't, you know, remember Criminal Minded, KRS One's first album, like on the title track, Criminal Minded, he says in the rhyme, DJ Scott LaRock has a college degree. Blastmaster KRS rocks poetry. Like, people used to brag about being smart and having a degree. I remember hearing an interview with Scott LaRock when Poet, this rapper out of Queensbridge, had dissed him, you know, and he was like, what am I gonna respond to Poet for? I got a college degree. Like, that was a response in hip hop in 1987. Like, yo, I'm not responding to this little ignorant kid. I got a college degree. What do I look like responding to him? Like, you, even if a dude had a college degree nowadays, they probably wouldn't admit it, and definitely not in no rhyme. Or could you imagine Drake being like, I'm not responding to, you know, Pusha T, I have a master's degree. Like, no, like you can't do that now. So as much as I love the culture, you know, it's been taken off of course. And it's funny, one of the shows we're doing on Apartment 5B is trying to look at how hip hop has shifted. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, people like MC Light, she had like really 2 dope albums out, Light as a Rock and All Eyes on This. But then around 90, 91, hip hop changed to where it was all about the money. And what I mean by that is if you go back to the early 80s, you know, the industry didn't know what to do with hip hop. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know how to market it. So it kind of was like, well, I guess just go in the studio and do what you guys do, you know. But then after NWA dropped and they saw how many units could get moved and how many records could get sold, then it was like the floodgates open to now the industry telling artists, this is what you should do. I always tell people, most people don't realize this. Cool G Rap's first album, not one curse word, not one. His second album, every other word was a curse word. Do I think that's a coincidence that that came out after NWA? Now, some people, I've argued with people and they've said, well, I think G-Rap always wanted to curse, but he just didn't curse. I'm like, but if he always wanted to curse, why didn't he curse in the first album then? I'm sure somebody in the record label said, hey, you know, you could curse a little bit more now. You know what I mean? Like, but right. That's how it kind of shifted. It shifted from Intelligent Hoodlum, who was down with the Juice Crew, saying, you know, arrest the president, he's the drug dealer. And everything was pro-black and everything was peace and let's stick together, to, you know, eventually by 94, Intelligent Hoodlum, who was saying arrest the president, he's the drug dealer, he became the drug dealer. He changed his name to Gaddafi and was down with Mobb Deep and them and was talking about killing and shooting people and selling drugs. You know what I mean? So there's this shift, there's always this shift in hip hop. And and I always salute Chuck D for it because he never changed. Chuck just said, this is what I believe in. This is where I stand on. If I fall off and nobody rocks with me or Public Enemy, that's cool. I'm not chasing whatever the new trend is hip hop. And I mean, Common does a good job of it with, you know, I used to love her, kind of breaking down how hip hop went throughout, you know, the ages, but literally looking at things like that, because that tells a lot about a lot of the albums that people had to get made.
You know, it's great to talk about this because like, I spent a lot of time talking about like the homogenization of like rap now. You were talking about how it was like cable back then.
Right.
And I've noticed that now it's just been streamlined. It's like there used to be channels. Like when I was coming up, you had different rappers that did different things, and that was cool. Everyone understood, that was fine. And now I notice, because like I talked to like my younger cousin, my little brother, and they listen to a lot of different artists, but they all sound similar. And so I'm just kind of like, where's the variety? Like, right. I'm not like, I'm just saying, like, you know, where's the guy that does this and the guy that does that? Like, they all sort of do the same thing now, to where it's hard for me to distinguish. It's like, you know, coming up, like, I knew that there was like, just full disclosure, I started rapping in 2007 because of Lil Wayne.
Okay.
During his like run and like when he was hot and like Carter 3 and all that. And I went through a development where it started with Wayne, because I listened to rap my whole life. Started with Wayne. And so for me, the blueprint to rap was like, okay, you have to have presence, the punchlines, like every other line is a punchline. You got to be witty, quote unquote witty, all of that. That was my understanding of rap. That was what appealed to me at the time. And then I went back to stuff like I grew up listening to, Jay-Z, things my dad introduced me to, Special Ed, like people like that, like everything. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to bring it away from like imitating Wayne to injecting more of my own part, because I'm not Lil Wayne.
Right.
You know, like I'm not from New Orleans.
But
like
you know what? That's where we all start. We all start with that influence.
Right. That emulation. That
right. And then, like you said, it gets to a point where you have to realize who are you. Which I didn't mean to cut you off because you're saying that, but I was just saying that's great. Most MCs can't do that.
Right.
You know, most MCs can't. They grew up liking Jay-Z and now they just rhyme like Jay-Z. They never stop to say, okay, well now who am I? So I'm sorry for cutting you off.
And, are you good? Like, to me, the dope part about hip hop was, my understanding was, it was about being yourself. So it was like an aha, like eureka moment. It's like, yo, I have something to contribute. I have a unique perspective. You know, it may not be for everyone, but this is what I bring to the table. This is what I bring to the rap game. So it may, like, I can say now, I wasn't the best rapper in the world, but at least I knew I was trying to do something that was unlike what I had already heard, or unlike what I was already hearing.
Do you still rap?
In private. Like, what I say about rap is like, I can never be retired. Like, rappers make that mistake, like, oh, I'm done. I feel like it's like, once you rap, you never like retire. It's like, you know, once, it's like being in the military, once a Marine, always a Marine. Like, my thing is like, I still think of lines just in walking around day to day. Like what I do with them is like the decision I have to make now. But like I'll never stop formulating and thinking in terms of rap. You know, like me and Mool's like sort of like, you know, transition to me making more pop, like literal pop music, like focusing more on songwriting and pretty much phase rap out. Like I ended the rap portion of my career after like 10 years. I still rap for myself, like, and just don't put it out. But for various reasons, it got to a point, just like the state of rap, I realized like in order to do what I wanted to do in rap at large, it felt like that window had closed because they were only allowing, you know, a certain subset of rapper to prosper past a certain point. You know, so I never looked at it as me giving up. It was more me like realizing, yo, I can always rap the way I want to rap, but I know it's not going to be lucrative. So if that's the case, I'm gonna keep rapping in private for myself, but I'm gonna, you know, because I have to sustain a livelihood and support myself and, you know, the people around me. So, you know,
and the reason I asked that was because one of the other things I loved about the 80s and what I hated about the 90s was that when the 90s came, I felt like you had to be this lyrical assassin, you know, in order to be a rapper. And again, just, you know, I always tell people life is all about how we're raised. You know, well, one of my other side hustles, marriage coaching. I do marriage coaching too. But I say this to couples all the time. It's all about how you were raised. You know what I mean? What you saw in your house is maybe either what you want to emulate in your house, in your new home, or if you didn't like what you saw, you want to do the opposite. So it's all about how you was raised. So with me in hip hop, I was raised with, like I said, Kwame, Kid and Play. These weren't the dopest rappers in the world. You know what I mean? They weren't Nas. They weren't the Jizza. Like I feel now, if you're not this lyrical acrobat, like there's just no place for you in hip hop. And I'm like, that's so messed up because Dana Dane, Kid and Play, Salt and Pepper, you know, Special Ed, like these were all to me dope MCs, but I can never look back at a lot of these 80 MCs and be like, oh, they were super lyrical, you know, but they were still dope, you know, and you know, I just wish it could go back to that, whereas, you know, everything is about the bars and everything is about this, where I'm a firm believer in, I like making great songs. And I think that's where hip hop is missing right now. You know, it's kind of like, give me a beat, I'll rhyme over anything and I'll rap about anything. But I'm like, is it a good song?
Is it a good song?
And that's where I think hip hop is missing now. Somebody said on Twitter, like, man, 2019 has been a dope year for hip hop. I was like, what even came out? And dude sent me like 20 albums. And I'm like, dog, I don't know who half these people are. You know, like who, you know, and I said again, hey, you know what? Again, if this is moving the culture forward and you feel like 2019 has been a great year, God bless you. I don't know what half this music is. I've listened to bits and pieces. It's nothing that catches my ear enough for me to go listen even more. But, you know, I just feel like that's the thing. People don't make good songs. Being a producer in the studio, I've had MCs come over to my crib, Kill, just play a beat. I'll get on any beat. And I'm like, no, like, what are we going to rap about? Right. I'm working with this young MC now. He's 17. His name is Moose out of Virginia. He's amazing. He's a beast. You know what I mean? And we sit and talk for hours before we even hit play on the drum machine. You know, like, what are we going to talk about? Like, because I told him, everybody raps now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I came up at a time when my neighborhood in Philly, there were like 3 rappers in a 40 block radius.
Bro, there's 2 rappers in this chat.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like when I went to Morgan State in 92, there were like 5 producers across the entire campus. You had to get with me, my man Osei, my man Shy, my man the kid called Roots, and God, who's the other one? My man Black. There were 5 of us on campus. That was it. You know, now if you go to Morgan in 2019, there's probably 30 producers in one dorm room because you got a garage band, you got this, you got that. So, you know, everybody raps. So when I'm with Mousse, I'm like, what are we going to rap about today? You know what I mean? Like I was telling him working with my kids, I said, here's a great concept. I said, I don't understand this whole suicide shit going on with kids. You know, that just wasn't an option for us. You know what I mean? So I don't understand cyberbullying and suicide and all that. So this is what I mean by I'm not always teaching my kids. I'll run a session and be like, y'all explain the shit to me because I don't get it. I'm lost. Why are kids killing themselves? And I was telling Moose, like, it would be dope if you did a song kind of explaining why. You know what I mean? Even if you haven't felt that way, I'm sure maybe you know people who have, or do some research on it. And I'm like, that would be a dope concept. That would be a dope concept. The younger generation would like it because it'd be like, oh, he's telling our story. Us old heads who are parents who want to know why our kids committing suicide was like it. We knock out two birds with one stone. Like, that's a dope song. If somebody said, Kill, somebody has a song out talking about this, I'd be like, yo, that would pique my interest. Like, let me check that out. So I'm always big into concepts and content of what we're talking about. You know what I mean? And I think that if there is something missing in hip hop right now, it's that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, the two EPs Black Thought put out. People are loving them. They're talking about them. They're great. They're this. And it's funny because a lot of people on Apartment 5B was like, oh, when the albums came out, oh, Black Thought, these are so incredible. These are the greatest albums ever. When we did our end of the year, your top 5 albums, ain't nobody named Black Thought. And I was like, wait, so can I ask a question? How did all of y'all tell me this was one of the greatest albums ever, but it didn't even make your top 5 list at the end of the year? Right. You know what I mean? Because we're so in the moment. It's so, it's a classic. Damn, it's been out 24 hours. I remember when Jay and Kanye dropped the whatever that album was, did their album together. Literally in 12 hours, it was a classic. I'm like, bro, have you even listened to it 3 times? It's like already a classic. You can go on Amazon and pre-order music and people have already rated it 5 mics. Y'all haven't even heard it. It's already 5 stars. Like, again, and Eric Sermon said this best. He said, dog, I'm doing sold out war tours, doing songs that are 30 years old. Will this generation be able to say that? Can a rapper right now in 10 years say, I'm going to have a sold out show performing X, Y, and Z song?
Right. It's about longevity and timelessness. And a lot of these rappers, because they don't make records,
right?
It's like what is your set gonna be when you're 45, 50, and it's like you're just gonna do the freestyles you did to the click track that the producer just set up, because that's how you vibe out, that's how you just get in the booth and freestyle.
What did you tell me?
There's a lane for that.
You said something about a vibe.
Yeah, the dude was like, he literally said I don't make
structured songs.
I don't want to make structured songs. I just want to capture the vibe. And it's like, okay, I get where you're coming from, but that's the whole game right now. You're not an outlier in that regard. So a lot of that ability to stick with you gets lost because there is no topic, because they're just getting in there and just coming off the top of the head. And it's it's about the feeling and the vibe and the flow. And it's yeah, there's a place for that. But when that takes over the entire game, everything else is phased out, and you're just left with this stuff that you talk about for a couple of days. If you're lucky, because the meme economy is so fast, you'll be lucky to get 48 hours. And then people forget about it. Like you mentioned the Black Thought thing. I think he dropped, was it 2 last year?
He dropped 2 EPs in 2018.
Yeah, and for me, I think I have because I keep a list right here, Volume 1. I like 2 of the 5 joints on there. Volume 2, I liked 1. I like Conception on there. Yeah, and it's they were cool, they were solid, but it was okay, this is sort of a lyrical exercise, Black Thought being Black Thought.
Right.
So it wasn't historical, classic, but I saw a lot of people talk yo, Black Thought. It's yeah, look, we all know Black Thought is good.
Right.
But I think people now are so thirsty for things to just either be great or be trash. I mean, you hear about that all the time. A lot of people are uncomfortable with things just being it was all right. No one knows how to let things be all right anymore.
That's my thing. My knock has always been hip hop right now is 3 mic hip hop to me. It's good. There's nothing that's really, and I think the thing that really made Thought stand out for me was this joint right here, the Book of Ryan joint, the Royce and 5'9" album. And Fonte, for the simple fact, Royce is talking about his childhood, his father being on cocaine. He's talking about this, what I call a dope contemporary hip hop. You know what I mean? It's music that's speaking to somebody who's my age. Fonte's album, No News is Good News. He's talking about, burying his dad. He has one of the dopest lines when he says something like, bury my dad and then hit the repass and ate the same shit that killed him.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Bug. He's talking about raising his sons. He's talking about getting remarried. He's talking about Expensive Jeans.
Expensive Jeans. Yeah, that was one of my favorite songs. Yeah, the Fonte album was my 3rd favorite album of last year.
Right.
I listened to hundreds of albums.
Right. And things like that. And for me, it touches home. I have a disease, fibromyalgia. So, I have sleep apnea. So even when he's rhyming in Expensive Jeans and he's got an app to tell you if you got sleep apnea, so when those two albums come out, and then I listen to Black Thoughts, and he's just rapping, it's kind of like, dog, you doing the same shit you was doing when I was in college with Illadelph Half-Life.
That's how I feel about Thought now. He's frozen in time.
Right. It's like these other MCs, because I mean, Royce is known to be a spitter. Fonte can spit, and they have songs where they're spitting, but when you put this next to your peers' albums, and you realize, like, I feel like with Thought, he like came right from Funk Flex and went right to the studio and just kept going.
Right. Like, this is what they want from me.
Right.
Like, this is what blew up. So I'm gonna just.
And like you said with Conception, I love Conception. I think that's an amazing song. But then the rest of the album just sounded like one long time.
Exactly how I felt.
And it's just like, yo, and again, for Thought, it's kind of disheartening for me, because I'm like, bro, you've been in this game 30 years. Like, I don't know. And again, I'm the magnifying glass hip hop dude. I'm like, okay, well, Rich Nichols, who was his manager, passed away a couple of years ago. So I don't know, maybe Rich was the one who could get him to rhyme like this or rhyme about, but it is disheartening to me that, I just think if I had peers like Fonte and Royce making albums with all this content, and I'm just still rapping all the time, and that's cool. If you like rappity rap, I get it. If storytelling ain't your thing, I get why you can have Black Thought #1. But when your peers come out with albums like Book of Ryan and No News is Good News, and you just still rapping, it's kind of like it's almost like you're a one-trick pony. Like, and again, there's no disrespect to Thought. I'm just saying, like, that's what he does good. But I would almost want to say, do you want to push yourself to maybe make a couple of songs about something? You know what I mean? So,
and you hear that there's like guys who excel at battle rap, for example, but they can't make a record.
Right.
For their lives. Right. What I think is missing from hip hop today is, like you said, these records in the sense of whether it's storytelling, whether it's something like, I think back to, I always reference Still Not a Player by Big Pun. Right. That's a party record. You still put that on. That record's been out for over 20 years now. You still put that on and people want to dance.
Oh yeah.
I don't hear.
And it was dope. And it wasn't a sellout party record. It wasn't a bad boy. He just looped up something, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Like, no, it was a dope hip hop party record,
Oh, sure. And I think it still holds up to this day. It's the kind of record that I wish I heard more of in hip hop today, which I'm not hearing these kinds of records. I'm hearing either something that's way, way, way out there from what I'm used to hearing in hip hop, like something that's so melodically driven. I mean, it's pop, it's R&B. I mean, whatever it is, it's not rap. They're not rapping. I didn't hear the words rhyme, but they're not being rapped, they're being sung. Right. So I don't even know how to quantify that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I think that you have people who are so, at this point, they have to try to innovate so bad that they're not making anything good. It's just for the sake of doing something different, right. And that's where I feel like the underground is at. And yeah, you were mentioning Griselda. I'm a big Rock Marciano fan, love Ka. Those are two guys a little bit older than the Griselda cats, but like, for every one of those, there's like 20 guys who are going in a direction where I've never heard it before. And it's, to me, not rap. It's just not interesting to me. It's not, you can't just do different stuff. Like, I think back to Definitive Jux and LP and stuff. I was not into Company Flow and LP and stuff when I was younger. It just didn't appeal to me. It was too science fiction sounding almost.
Right.
For everyone on Jux that I liked Aesop Rock. I like Murs. There were like 2 or 3 guys that I just didn't understand. Like, yo, these guys aren't rhyming on beat. The beats sound weird, like they're coming out of a spaceship. But to some people, they're the dopest things of all time. I remember LP saying, oh my God, there's a joint on the Nas album, Zone Out, on Godson. And he's like, I wish I made that beat. That beat's one of the best beats I've ever heard. I went and heard this beat, and it's just the sound of a sample. It's just a sample being reversed. But to him, it was the dopest thing ever. My ear has always been tuned a little bit more towards the musical end of things, which is why, I loved like Premier, because Premier could play an MP like an instrument. Like, you show me Billy Joel on the piano, and then you show me Premier on an MP, and it's just as good.
Right.
There's a lack of like structure and discipline in rap right now. And my feeling on it, quite honestly, is that there was an opportunity when this whole blog era thing started to kick off in like 2009, 2010, and you had Drake, you had Wale, Blue, J. Cole. These guys were starting to emerge. And I feel like there was an opportunity for these guys to carry the torch of the previous generation as they carried the torch from the generation in the 80s. You know, I grew up listening to rappers rip off Rakim. I didn't realize this. You know, I'm born and raised in New York. I lived most of my life in Long Island, down the block from where they recorded Public Enemy, Takes a Nation and Millions to Hold Us Back. Like, I should know Rakim, and I did, but I didn't.
Right. I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, at my age, when I first started listening to hip hop, I was listening to Mos Def and Nas and all these guys rip off Rakim.
Right. And the hard part is like I always say, golden era is like when people will argue, oh, the 90s, the 80s. I'm like, the golden era is whenever hip hop was speaking to you. You know what I mean? So to me, there's no definite golden era. It's like I said on Twitter the other day, I said, yo, there's somebody out here whose golden era is 2000 to 2010. And just like that, somebody jumped on my time like, yo, you right, kill that. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, because the biggest thing about hearing things when stuff came out was you had to be there. You know, I tell people all the time, I could listen to Marvin Gaye, what's going on, 1,000,000 times. I could read 800 books about Marvin Gaye. I'll never know how that song felt the way it hit my parents. You know, when they had their friends being shipped to Vietnam, when they had their family members in Vietnam. Like, what's going on? That album speaks to people 58 and really 60 plus a whole different way than it can speak to us. One of my teens was in the teen center and I was playing The Bridge Is Over. He was like, I was like, yo, this is one of the hardest diss songs ever. He was like, this is whack, kill. Like, he ain't saying nothing. Like, you know, like, did you hear Hit 'Em Up? Like, yo, Pac, like, yo, I fucked your bitch and this and that and all that. Where's the cursing? And I'm like, bruh, that wasn't hip hop in 87. Like, you didn't have to curse all the time to have a dope diss record. And I'm like, here's a prime example of you had to be there. You know, I get it. Like, a kid hearing The Bridge Is Over now after you've heard Hit 'Em Up and you've heard Pusha T talk about Drake every which way, bring up his son. Like, I'm like, those weren't the disses we did. Like, KRS was not trying to find out if Marley's dad was in the picture or if his mom, you know, that we didn't care about.
At a certain point, right? When does it go too far? Like, I hear, Kill, I know you're an old school wrestling fan.
Yeah.
But I grew up during the Attitude Era, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, The Rock, Lil Bret Hart, and Shawn Michaels, Undertaker. And these guys, Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, these three tag teams that completely innovated tag team wrestling. Now, I had grown up as a little kid seeing Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, you know, Demolition, things like that. That was it at one point in time. That was it. Until these guys started jumping off tables and jumping off ladders through tables and, you know, double chair shots and spears from the top of the ladder, and all of a sudden they're killing themselves. Like, it's starting to look more like Demolition Derby than wrestling. Right. And, you know, they look back now and they say, man, I think we killed the business.
It's set a new, like, it's a new standard now. The precedent has been reestablished.
Right. If you're not jumping off the ladders, then you're a whack tag team.
Right. Which shouldn't be the case. But it's like now the bar is here and it's like, you know, everything that came before it pales in comparison. It's not fair, but like you said about context and just like you had to be there and how that all ties together. Like, I noticed what you were saying because I did a little bit of research before this because like I wanted to be prepared. But I noticed a lot of what you said. You were saying on your website about, you know, like what's going on and like, you know, being there for that for that to drop, like Marvin Gaye to drop that in that time period with that context of what was going on in culture and society. Like just recently, I was running through Prince's discography, like the 80s. I took a break and I went through Nirvana because, like, you know, I heard about them. They've been like, you know, they're like icons, they're legends now. And like, you know, I heard about them my whole life. I knew everyone knows Smells Like Teen Spirit. Right. But I'm like, let me listen to the albums because there's only like 3 of them. It's like Bleach, Nevermind, and Utero. So I listened to them and I was like, okay, Nevermind is cool. I like 8 out of the 12 songs on here. And then I was just telling Mools a while today, like, okay, I see how this was a moment in time. I can get the feeling, but I still had to be there. Like, I wasn't there to wear the flannel and like be into grunge and like see Kurt like in real time, you know. But it's like I can sort of from a distance be like, I can feel the energy from this record, you know. But there's nothing like being there. It's like I try to explain to kids now, like, oh, you know, at a point, Lil Wayne was like the god of rap, like he was the number one guy. Now he's almost like a legacy act. It's crazy. And it's because, like, to me, it was like, I remember when this was brand new, and like he was like, he transformed from like the Hot Boys dude, slowly, like Carter 1, Carter 2, like Dedication 2, went on the mixtape run, sold 1 million first week, and he was like top of the game.
Right.
And now it's just like, oh, Lil Wayne, the guy who like skates around and like.
It's funny because I never thought he would be bigger than Drake. Like I really never thought that. I thought it would always be like Lil Wayne and then Drake right like under him or even next to him, but I never imagined that Drake would just be Drake and Lil Wayne is like an afterthought now.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because like when you were talking about like Pusha T and Drake and everything, Moles and I have, like, we've discussed this. We've probably talked about Drake enough to make a Drake podcast just amongst ourselves, like in private. Right. Like, and the thing is, like, talking about in terms of stans, like I would say it's fair to say we're both like Drake fans, right? Moles, like,
I would know his catalog. I'm a Drake fan. I'm not a Drake stan.
Now, right, but the word
I'm very critical of him.
Exactly.
I like him a lot, and I think, I mean, I used to take up arms in terms of like defending him because I felt like I didn't like when people were just like, oh, he's soft, he's soft, he's soft. I'm like, all right, pick something better, get a better angle than just he's soft, you know, like LL Cool J soft by that, you know, standard. So find someone who's, you know, like find another criticism and complaint. But I have a laundry list of complaints about Drake.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the difference is like people, the word stan has become a buzzword where people outside of rap culture don't even really know where the etymology of the word like comes from the Eminem song. And when you think about the actual origin of the thing, being a stan isn't a good thing. Dude was unstable, like killed his girlfriend. Like it's a caricature of like an obsessed fan that can't really see, you know, rationally, you know, how things actually are. So I feel like I am like, as far as familiarity with Drake's catalog, a stan, but I'm not a stan in that I can be critical of him when I think he can do better or what, you know, what I think he could
improve. For me, then you're a fan. Like to me, the stan is the person who is just there can be no wrong.
Right. You can't done no wrong.
Next level
is 5 mic. Even if in your heart and soul you could be like, yo, this album is trash. When you get online, it's 5 mics. Like, you know, you can't say anything. You gotta, and people have just defined ride. Like if you ride for this person, then you would do that. And I'm like, but this is why we have whack hip hop, because people don't want to say, no, that's not good. Go back and do it again. Like, you know, this is why music sounds the way it sounds, because there's nobody to say, yo, no, that's whack. Like, do it again. Or no, that because you constantly have people constantly telling you this is dope. You know what I mean? And that's the problem that, you know, you don't have. You know, Porsche talks about it all the time. Why would J. Cole ever get features? Because all people's all about is he goes platinum with no features. You know what I mean? Or,
and they seem to be eating it up. You know, so why would he ever switch
I
up?
like J. Cole as an MC. I'm not a big fan of him as a producer. I wish he'd get some outside production. But again, how do you tell somebody who's going platinum with no features that you need to do something different? They're gonna be like, it's work. What I'm doing is working. Like, you know, when it's not working, then maybe they'd be open to hear, okay, well, maybe this, maybe that. But as long as it's working, like, how do you get somebody to do that? You know, so I think that's the problem with the stand-up, is that it just gets to a point where you can't even, not even be critical. But I tell people with my scripts all the time, I have 6 friends I call my goon squad, because I want them to just tear the shits up. I want them to read it, and I want them to tell me everything that's wrong with it. When people hit me back like, no, I loved it, I'm like, then tell me what you loved about it. Like, and because I want the critical advice. You know, I want, and I always tell people, you can say it's the worst thing you ever read, but just tell me why. Well, the character's not good? Was the dialogue not good? Just don't tell me it was whack. But I don't think a lot of people always say, keep it real, and I always say this is how I lose a lot of friends and gain new friends. People love me to death because they be like, Kill, you keep it so real. You keep it 100. You keep it a buck. Yeah, you love it until I have to keep it real with you. Then I become the asshole. Then I become this and I become that. You love it but that's the thing. Most people don't. I want you to tell me if I'm doing something wrong. You know what I mean? When my wife is like, yo, you're not being a good husband right now, I'm all ears. Like, do tell. What am I doing wrong? Like, what can I be doing better? You know, but a lot of people don't want to be told, you know, Ben Simmons, work on your jump shot. You know, like, why? How is freaking, you know, LeBron James management company and Rich Paul your management? Ain't nobody telling you to work on your jumper? Your pop is a professional ex-basketball player. He ain't telling you what. Like, where do people take the criticism to continue to make great art? You know what I mean?
That's the
like
foundation of what we do here, myself and Melvin, because I've been sitting in as his executive producer, creative director for the past 3 years now. Songs don't come out that suck.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to be. It's a two-pass system. We have to both agree. And what I appreciate the trust in this relationship is, if I send him something, he'll flat out tell me, "Yo, it sucks." But what I know is he'll explain why to me, right. And that I can live with.
And that's how you get better. That's why I always tell people, just tell me what you didn't like. Tell me this character wasn't believable or the dialogue wasn't good. But so then that way I can work on those things. But two things you said, the relationship you have. I always say one of the problems with hip hop is the death of the executive producer. You know what I mean? If you take RZA away from Wu-Tang is 12 dudes rhyming on every song, which would have bored everybody to death. It was RZA saying, you know what, Ghost and Ray, you get on this song, and Meth, you do the hook, and Jizza and Old Dirty, he was the coach. He was calling the plays. So the fact that you have somebody that you trust to be able to tell you when it's a yay or a nay is what most people don't have nowadays.
But that's the thing, Kill. It's not just about not having that person to tell you something sucks. Because, I mean, yeah, I'm in this role. It's the fact that myself as a producer, as someone who's emceed, now as someone who's taken more of a back seat, a more behind the scenes role. It's not about me just saying something's good or bad. It's the fact that this man over here is willing to accept the criticism, because especially with artists, it's very hard to find someone who's just going to even be open to hearing the truth, whether it's going to be good or bad. I've had so many situations where, you know, I'll be honest with someone and I've lost a friend for being honest, and I feel bad about it now, but it's like, man, what do I have?
Don't feel bad.
Without honesty, what else do I have to give to someone?
I tell people all the time, yo, I get so many DMs every day, like, OG, I respect you, listen to my music. And I'm like, bro, I'm going to tell you if it's good or not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just be prepared. I'm not that dude to just be like, oh, this is dope. And, you know, it's dope because some people don't respond. And one producer sent me some stuff, and I was like, yo, I like the samples, but your drums ain't really hitting like that. And he was like, well, can you explain it to me? So I like videotaped me making a beat and like showed him how to EQ his drums better. He was like, yo, bet, I see it, I'm on it. A week later, he hit me back. He's like, yo, I took all my shit off of SoundCloud. I did all the little tweaks you told me to do. I put it back up. Like, to me, that's what hip hop is supposed to be about. You know what I mean? People helping each other. You know what I mean? And I think, like you said, that's dope that y'all have that relationship, but most people don't want that. When I was doing an album with my man K Fanat, we recorded 30 songs and picked the best 14. You know what I mean? That's how we used to make music in the 90s. That's why so many people could have B-sides and, you know, songs on soundtracks over here, because these were songs that didn't make the album that was still dope, but maybe it just didn't fit that album. Where I feel like nowadays, if there's 10 songs on the album, I probably bet you they made those 10 songs. Right. Like, that was it. Yeah. Like, they just was like, we got 10 songs, we made the 10 songs, album done, let's get it going. And I'm like, nah, like, make 30 and pick the best 14, or pick the best that have a great feel for what you're trying to get across. But again, nobody does that. There's no artist development to be like, let's make good songs, or let's make good albums. Let's make cohesive, you know, things. And I always tell people, like, my thing for a dope album was, yo, I had a girlfriend who lived in Atlanta. I got to drive from Baltimore to Atlanta, and I got to take one CD.
Right.
Like, that's when you can sit back, and this is before CD burners and all that shit was out, so you couldn't make no mix CD. You had to take an album. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's where you could start seeing like a cohesive album. That's when you could put in Illmatic, or Only Built for Cuban Leaks, or Reasonable Doubt, and Ready to Die. And you could just sit back and just vibe out, and Daily Opera. You know what I mean? But again, nowadays, I just don't think, you know, and this is one of the reasons why I do the podcast, because I'm blessed to have a lot of young followers, is I want them to learn. I always joke, if you know nothing about hip hop, I've got over 300 podcasts. You do all 300, you got a fucking bachelor's degree in hip hop. Like, you literally, trust me, can walk away like, yo, I learned something. And again, that's what I always wanted to do. Most podcasts that I like, Drink Champs and stuff like that, it's always based off of who's the guest that week. You know what I mean? If there's a dope guest, then I'm all ears. If there's no guest, I really don't listen. I didn't want the podcast to be somewhere there had to be a dope guest. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be where the topic, I want you to leave watching the episode of Apartment 5B and be able to take this conversation back to your crew. I want you to be able to take this conversation back to the barbershop. I want you to take this to the barbecue. Like, yo, who your top 5 rappers and why? Or what are your top 5 attributes? Or we did this whole March Madness 64 bracket thing on who's the greatest MC ever, who's the greatest producer ever, who's the great. I want people to, I'm like, download those, fill them out with your crews, and then show me who made your final 4. Like, I want it to be interactive. And back in 93, I used to host from 93 to 2000. Morgan State had a hip hop show, Strictly Hip Hop, and I hosted that for those 7 years. And, you know, being a fan of the show before I got up there, my biggest thing was I want the show to be interactive. Like, prior to me coming up there, all you could do was call up to give shout outs. And I was like, yo, that's whack. Like, yo, let's make a question of the week and then allow the phone lines to be open so people can feel like they're part of the show. I started a part of the show called Demo Madness. Again, this is 93. This is demos with 4-track tapes and, you know, and stuff like that. So it was like, let's give them a place to where people can get their music heard on the radio. You know, so my thing has always been, how can this be like, I always would say, like, this is Baltimore's, you know, hip hop show. It's not Strictly Hip Hop. It's not Morgan State's hip hop show. It's the whole city's hip hop show. Like, we're all invested in this show. So yeah, and I'll tell you what's crazy. Somebody hit me on Instagram, was like, yo, Kill, you're a fucking hip hop legend here in Baltimore for what you did for those 7 years, you know, and that means the world to me. You know what I mean? So, because that's why I was, not to be a legend, but I just wanted people to just love the show, you know, not from the music we're playing, but I wanted them to feel like they could be part of the show too.
Word. Yeah, I mean, that discourse is everything. Being able to spark that conversation and people can take that and apply it elsewhere in life, you know, in their own community and their own group.
Right.
To just be able to branch off from that. I mean, just to spark thought is everything. I mean, it's a quote that's thrown around all the time now. It's like, but, you know, like Pac said something to the effect of, like, you know, I may not be like the guy, but I'll spark the mind. Right. The person that'll do the thing. You know how that goes. But it was 2 things I was actually thinking about, you were talking about before I lose it. One, you were talking about albums. Moles and I are both album guys. Like, we almost, like, last year we put out like a song a month because we felt like we had to, given the landscape of the music industry right now, to just
keep, how content hungry everybody is.
Right. To just keep the visibility there. But if we had our way, we wouldn't have done that. You just get an album when the album's ready, because we're album guys. We appreciate the experience of an album. And we know albums now we feel like just like folder dumps. Right. Like, it's like whatever they were working on from this month to this month.
Right.
They dropped the 30 tracks on streaming and like that's the album. But it's really just like the label's like, throw it out and we'll see what pops and we'll run with that. We'll put the money on that. And like, that's not really an album to me. But like, you spoke about like making a bunch of records and picking the best ones. Like the album I'm working on right now, we started in October. It's May now. I only have 3 records. And we made dozens.
We make 2 a week. We make 2
songs a week. So
I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, right. Like 8 a month. And it's like, you know, this is the 3rd album we worked on now together. And we've cut more songs from this one than probably both the last albums combined. Like, because we really want to get this right. We want to get better every single time.
Right.
And like, we appreciate that cohesion and that thematic strength in an album, you know, because that's what got me into music. That's what I came up on. You know, it's just like that front to back experience, whether it's a story, a narrative, or it's just like things flowing, hate to use this word, but sonically, you know, transitioning from song to song, that matters. I feel like that's a part of the experience. You know, you hear a song in sequence, it can affect how you feel about that song and that record.
You're correct, bro. Sequencing is it's a lost art. You know what I mean? And I've seen people literally say, just put it in the order we recorded it. And I'm like, nah, bro. Like, yo, I want the album to start off great, and then maybe, you know, we can slow it down. But then by the end, I want it to ramp back up. There's been so many albums that by song 9, I'm like, when is this shit over? Like, I don't want you to get that feeling when you're listening to an album I produce. I want you to be at the last song like it's over. Like, fuck. Like, no, I want more. Like, then too many albums are just like, finally, like, fine, good, we're done. Like, so the sequencing is and all those things, they're all different things. I always use sports analogies, but Steph Curry may be the greatest shooter ever, but he has a shooting coach. Like, you know, just because you're great doesn't mean you don't keep other people around you to keep you sharp, you know? So at the end of the day, you need somebody. You may not, as an MC, may not have the gift to be, crazy story. Back in 95, 96, I made a beat. My man came over, played on the beat, said he didn't like it. He left. Another dude came over, played on the same beat. He liked it. He rhymed on it. We recorded it. Next day, the first MC comes over. I play him the completed song, and he says, "Why didn't you play me that beat?" And I said, "I didn't play you the beat." And we argued. He was like, "Nigga, you did not play." I'm like, "Bruh, I played you that beat." But it showed me that he wasn't able to hear the beat by itself and hear what he could do to it. But then when he heard the complete song, he was like, "Why didn't I get that?" Then that kind of showed me that just because you're an LMC doesn't mean you have the gift to be able to pick beats or be able to kind of see the bigger picture, you know, which is why, again, that executive producer, that person who says, "Yo, trust me, I think this beat would be dope," or "I think you rhyming like this to that beat." And we did a show like this, and I don't know if y'all familiar with Tracy Lee. He's an MC out of Philly. He had a song out called The Theme, had an album out, Many Faces. He was on the show, and we were talking about MCs who need an executive producer ASAP. You know what I mean? And Thought was one of the MCs because it was like, we just think he needs somebody to pick better beats. We think he needs somebody to help him maybe come up with concepts and things like that. But
Thought had an executive producer
in Quest
for many albums.
Yeah, I wish. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Beverly Hills Cop. It's an old 80s movie, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there was a time when Eddie Murphy was hiding from Inspector Todd under the desk, and it was like, I want Quest to hide. Quest is not a good executive.
No. I'm not arguing the merits of his executive production. I'm just saying he's had one, and yet, you know, the most you get in way of detail and story is just, you know, the streets of South Philly, they're known to get gruesome. You know, in the wrong corner, you might get got. Like, okay. Like,
here's a funny story about that Thought challenge I did. I had people tell me that the same song was about different topics. Like maybe 4 people, let's just say, picked a song called Do It All. And one person said, "Oh, that's about this." Another person knows about that. I'm like, y'all Black Thought fans so confused. Y'all don't even know what the damn, like, y'all can't even agree what the song is about. Like, so yeah, I just think Thought, I think, you know, with Amir and Quest, I just don't, again, with the Roots, that's a whole nother, them being from Philly, I feel like, you know, those first 3 albums, you know, Do You Want More, especially Philadelphia, Things Fall Apart. Number 1, Malik B was part of that group, and he was an important part of the Roots. I don't think most people realize that, but he was. And his drug addiction led him to lead the group, which to me took an L. And the Roots used to get a lot of outside production from this cat Chaos and Kilo, and after Things Fall Apart, Quest kind of took over, and I think it just kind of went downhill from there. But again, he's Questlove. Can you really tell him, like, you know, this dude is making his own cheesesteaks now and books, and he's in New York. You know, you can't tell Quest he ain't the shit. So, you know, and then at first I was excited, like, oh, okay, bet. You know, Thought is moving away from Quest, and then he came out with 2 EPs, and I'm like, well, shit, maybe Quest ain't the problem. Like, you know, maybe he just, like you said, hasn't found the right executive producer, you know, because and then at the end of the day, maybe, guess what? A lot of people who are rap rappers, you said it yourself, back in the 90s, those freestyle dudes like Supernatural and Mad Skills, yeah, they could rap about everything in the room, but can't make a good song to save their life. Yep. You know what I mean? So it may just be that that's something that, you know, maybe it's easy for Thought to rhyme about girls. You know, maybe it's harder for him to rhyme about a particular topic, because that was, again, the challenge. You got to have 2 verses where he's talking about the same thing. You know,
challenge. I only got 3 songs, so
you know,
I was helping people out. I was like, and don't forget reality TV. That was on Jay Z's page where he's rapping about, like, I'm helping people. Like, people are like, oh, I didn't even hear that. I'm like, I'm trying to help y'all. Like, I would, and again, I always tell people, I'm not that dude who's like, I told you so. I'm always like, I want to be wrong. I don't mind being wrong. You know, people are like, oh, Ben Simmons can be great. I'm like, you know what? I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Because if I'm right, that means the Sixers go 3 years behind. So I hope you're right. Like, I pray you are right and I'm wrong. But and again, it's no knock on Thought. It's just, as a fan, I want to hear him talk about, rap about something. Give me a story, and but then again, that's me. I love storytelling. You know what I mean? It's just something I don't know if you guys have ever heard, because I always tell people Joe Budden is one of the illest storytellers ever, and everybody looks at me like I'm on crack. I'm telling you, he has a song called Three Sides to a Story.
Yep.
Oh my God, that may be one of the greatest storytelling. I mean, it's like 7 minutes long, but I mean, the detail he goes into that is, to me, that's just storytelling on a whole nother level. You know what I mean? And people can't get past Loving Hip Hop Joe, or that's just a pump it up. Joe is an incredible storyteller, man, for real.
Joe's a good MC. I bought his debut album on Def Jam when it came out back in 2003. And it was like, yeah, I got made fun of for having the album. They'd always, make pump it up jokes and stuff like that. I kept telling him, though, this album is good. Trust me. Like, there's good records on here. A joint on there called Come Walk With Me, I think it's called. Another one called 10 Minutes, which is like kind of a story song. There's a joint called Calm Down that's about his drug addiction and his issues with his parents. He was getting into those mood music sort of spaces, even on the first album. And I was hearing him because, in New York, they'd play DJ Clue on the radio a lot. And he would be playing Triangle Offense, it was Budden, Fabulous, and Paul Kane. So you hear these dudes on the radio freestyling all the time. Like, Joe has been nice. I think
here's a funny story about Joe.
Is like way after everything, though.
Yeah, and the funny story about Joe, at that MOP show, Joe was the headliner. MOP was the headliner. But the guys I went with, my peoples, was like Joe Buttons. And I'm like, yo, that Pump It Up dude, why y'all so hyped for him? Like, and I didn't hear any of the mood music or anything. And I swear to God, it was Terminology, Big Suge. They performed. It was like 50 people in there. When they said Joe Buttons came to the stage, I think he brought all of Jersey with him, because I swear to you, like 300 people appeared out of nowhere. And it was my first time in my life that I ever felt left out at a hip hop event. I mean, people knew every word. The people I came with left hoarse. I hadn't been to a hip hop show where you leave hoarse. And I was like, and I'm just sitting on the back like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what am I missing? So like that night I went home and downloaded every mood music and been a Joe Budden fan ever since. He's an incredible MC. And like you said, it's almost like when I tell people, I made a Best of Joe Budden mixtape just so people, because I knew nobody was going to listen to all the mood music. So I'm like, just listen to this. And I like, and introduced so many people to Joe Budden, because I understood that, that Pump It Up dude, because that was me. You know what I mean? So
Dear Diary on Mood Music 3, which, like, it's such an amazing record. I wish people would listen to it, but to get past the idea that this guy was like a one-hit wonder,
right?
To the public, to like the tri-state, he's just good for one record and a couple mixtape songs. I'm saying, no, listen, he's saying some real shit on these beats, bearing his soul. This is emotional music. This is really like, you got to give it a shot. Trust me. Listen, he just said, I would down a whole Pinot Gris, but I'd see the group home without the Primo beat. Like, and they're like, oh, all right, let me see what he's talking about. All of a sudden, they come back around talking about, Mood Music 4 though. Like, when's that coming out?
It's funny. Mood Music 4 is 5 mics to me, man. 5 mics. Nobody agrees with me, and I'm like, I'm okay with being the odd man out. I love Mood Music 4. Like, I just felt like Joe was in his bag, and like you said, for me, I wanted, and I got it from Do It All from Lords of the Underground. He had said, there's no adult contemporary hip hop. He said this about 10 years ago, and at first I didn't understand it, but growing up in the 80s, in Philly, we had Power 99 that played all the Jodeci, Boys II Men, Mary J. Blige. And then we had WDAS that played all the Luther and Anita and Whitney. And that was called adult contemporary R&B, like for our parents. And it was like, where is that in hip hop for people my age? That's 45. Where's the hip hop that talks to the things that we're going through? So that goes back to the Fonte stuff, like expensive jeans. You got to take care of your health, getting remarried, burying your parents, raising your kids. Like, where is that music? And I always felt like Joe was one of the people who gave you that adult contemporary hip hop. He told you, Like, you know, I felt like you felt like you know Joe after you listened to a Joe Budden album. You know, like you know about Trey, you know about his son, you know about all the hoopla, and not too many MCs that are nice are gonna be that vulnerable. You know what I mean? And some people just don't have the gift. I always tell people with OutKast, Miss Jackson, what rapper doesn't have a baby mama? But who was actually going to write a song about it? You know, and not only done with your baby mama, but her mama. You know what I mean? And make a great song and at the same time make a hit. And it's like that's when certain people just have it. It's the same thing with the NBA. We have some people who are just super fucking duper stars, like your Kevin Durant, your Kawhi, your LeBron, and then you have people. You have tiers to this shit. You know, and every MC, every basketball player can't play as good as Kevin Durant, or they would. You know, every rapper can't rap as good as Andre 3000. Every rapper can't rap as good as a Nas. You know what I mean? And that's no knock on you, but then you may not just be able to give me what I need at the time. And again, it may not speak to me. It may speak to somebody else, you know, which is cool. But, you know, we did a show about why does hip hop have an age limit? Like, why is hip hop the only, and I don't even like calling it a genre of music because it's a culture. You know what I mean? So why is hip hop the only place where the older you get, the whacker you're looked at? You know what I mean? Like when I'm on Twitter, people are like, oh, Kill, you old. I'm like, that's not a diss. Where I'm from, I didn't think I was going to live to be 18. Right. I remember praying to God, just let me make it to college just so my mother can say her son is in college. I didn't even think I was going to live to graduate from college. I just wanted to get there. You know what I mean? So you calling me old isn't an insult, my G. Like you gotta come with something better than you old or you played, bruh. I tell my kids all the time, they be like, Mr. Kill, you old with your gray beard. I'm like, what the fuck? You want me to get shot in my head when I was 18? Like that's what happens when you live. You get old. That's a blessing. We have to stop looking at it like being old is a bad thing. And like I said, I'm blessed that I have like the people I have on Twitter. I don't even like calling them my followers because that sounds just off to me. Just the people I link with on Twitter, it's a blessing that the bulk of them respect that. And it'll be like, OG, let me know what you think about this. Or OG, like we like settle this argument for us. So to me, that's a blessing, you know, to be somebody's OG, to have somebody say, yo, Kill, what should I do? And like I said, Twitter, I have people who call and ask me for freaking parenting advice, you know, which is so dope to me. Fuck music, man. I'm talking about people who will call me like, Kill, I know your daughter 13. Let me share what my daughter going through. You got any? That to me is more important than anything. You know, when people call me for marriage advice, like that's great for me to want to hear your music and give you thumbs up, thumbs down. But when people are like, yo, bro, I need help. Like my marriage is falling apart. Can you help me? Like that's the stuff
that's because they're looking at you as an example, a measuring stick of you're a great man, not just a great producer.
Right.
And that is actually one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because I think you're a great man. I think you're a very honorable man. And I think more people should know about, you know, what you do. And it's been a pleasure having you on here. I think before we leave today, though, Melvin had a question for you as far as how you would rank.
Oh, yeah. I was reading on the site and you were saying that OutKast was the best hip hop group ever.
Right.
You know, and I actually recently, just a few months ago, went through their whole discography because when I came in, it was like early 2000s. Like I would hear on the radio, Miss Jackson, The Whole World. That was like the greatest hits thing they did, you know. Then went into like the Speaker Box, Stankonia era.
Right.
Or not, Stankonia, Speaker Box, Love Below era. So like I heard the singles. And as a kid, of course, because I didn't my dad didn't like buy me my first CD and probably until I was, you know, I got Big Willie style when I was like 6. But like, and I ride for that album. I cape for it all the time. Right. I think Will Smith is a very underappreciated.
Will is a very, very underappreciated MC. Let me see if I got it over here somewhere. Jazzy. Yeah. This right here is a very underappreciated album, the Rock the House album. This is from this is from '88. This is Jazzy Jeff from Fresh Prince, aka Will Smith's first album. When people think of Will Smith, they think of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know what I mean? And when I think of Will Smith, I think of this hungry rapper from Philly who would go to the Latin quarters in New York City. This book ain't no half step, and it's about the Latin quarters, which was a crazy club in Manhattan in the 80s. And Will and Jeff would come up to the Latin quarters from Philly and kill shit, like literally. So a lot of people do when they think of Will Smith, they think of the Big Willie style, they think of Summertime, but this Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble and The Magnificent and Rock the House, Live at Union Square, like this is really the OG, like Fresh Prince. So I agree with you 100%.
I thank my dad for putting me on to that stuff because like my introduction was Fresh Prince, watching that Men in Black, like Independence Day. But he would play me like Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble, Parents Just Don't Understand. But like I remember vividly because you talk about storytelling. When I was a kid, my dad, he was telling me like, yo, Will Smith did this record where he was rapping about Freddy Krueger. And I was like real big into Freddy at the time. It's like A Nightmare on My Street where he tells like the whole story. Like, I don't know if it was for a soundtrack or what, but like
it was supposed to be in the movie, I think, but something happened. But yeah, it's supposed to be for like a Freddy movie.
But he had played me that record, and I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. Like the story from the beginning to the end, like they went to the movies, they got home, he was in the dream. And I thought it was hilarious. Like at the end, the little skit, he wakes up and he calls Jeff. And like, it was so funny to me how like Freddie is like, Jeff is like, man, you tripping, it's just the movie. And then you hear Freddie go, roar. He's like, ah, like that was great to me. Like the sound design, the concept, the execution, perfect. And so like Will Smith to me is an example of a very great MC. Like as far as presence, making records, staying on the topic, having charisma, all of it, like I really value Will Smith. But just to get back, so like OutKast, I came in like early 2000s, like 7 or 8 years old, and I think the only album I had ever really heard close to most of was The Love Below, because my dad had bought the double album, but he never played speaker box around me because I guess it was more explicit.
Right.
He would always play The Love Below, which is kind of funny thinking about my generation of people like making more, I guess, introspective soft rap. That was kind of one of the blueprints for that. Because like that was a departure from what people would expect from OutKast and Andre and everything. But I recently went through their whole discography because when I first started working with Moles, like in 2016, we listened to, I think it was Aquemini.
Aquemini, yeah. That's my favorite.
That was the first time I heard Aquemini, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like this is dope. Like I was upset that like I had never heard it.
This is literally one of the greatest albums of art. It's one of the few albums I got vinyl, CD, and I've got the instrumentals. Like that's just amazing.
I'm telling you, when it comes to hip hop albums, for me personally, it's either that or Resurrection.
Yeah,
one of the two. Just for me personally, I'm a little bit older than Melvin. I'm a little bit younger than you, but those are my albums. Those are my go-tos right there.
And like I was glad I was introduced to that because I was actually just telling him today before the podcast, like growing up, my parents, my mom, my dad, my stepmom, they all had music around. And like, I remember my stepmom had a CD binder and like, I would always see Aquemini, but like, I guess cause I wasn't like paying enough attention to the title. I always thought it was Aquamini, like to me. And like, cause I didn't know he was like the combination of the two like astrological signs. So I was like this Aquamini, like, I don't know what it is. And then I finally heard it's like, oh, it's Aquemini, number one. And number two, it's dope.
Right.
And so like, eventually, like, so I went through the whole discography and how it all shook out is I actually had Speaker Box and Aquemini tied, like statistically.
Okay.
Both, like at the one spot. At 2, I had ATLians. At 3, it was Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music.
Right.
4, Stankonia, 5, Idlewild. So that's how it came out. Pretty much my findings were that I had slept on Speaker Box, not really willingly. It's just like,
right. But your dad
I didn't grow up with it. Yeah. Right. So like actually getting to hear it, it was like, oh, okay. So the other side is actually dope too. Like the dude sitting on the chair. Cause I knew it was like Andre, he has like looking flamboyant with like the fur and the pink. And then there was the dude who's like on the chair, big boy.
Oh Lord, Melvin, let me show you something real quick. I'm just gonna move the camera a little bit. Let me see if you can see it. Pardon the mess. You see the chair?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's the chair. That's the chair, bro. That's the wicker chair. It's not the exact one, but it's close to it. It's one of those. Yeah. It's one of those pimp chairs, Yeah,
and it was just like it was great to have that experience, but it was just interesting to finally hear. I love going back and listening to albums that I only knew the singles from, because like
Right.
at the time it was Hey Ya, which is like #1, huge,
Right.
and it was like The Way You Move. Those were the 2 lead singles.
Right.
Both 10 out of 10s to me, and I don't give 10s out easily, but it's a combination of where I was in life.
Right.
I had that bias. I was like in the 6th grade. It was a meaningful time for me. But those 2 records resonated with me. And like those are both like 10s in my personal opinion. But yeah, I found that like just from top to bottom, Moles would always tell me like he thinks OutKast has like, I think you said like the best discography in hip hop, like from album to album. Like
either OutKast or Biggie, but Biggie, I give it to OutKast because they got more.
Right.
And it was funny. I would like to have you back on the show because I was gonna get into something because you were talking about the
anytime.
Okay, cool. Because I was reading, you were saying in the barbershop, you had that conversation with people, and they like pretty much discounted Big because he only had 2 albums. But they were like, they're not accounting for like the deep cuts and the mixtape tracks that really got people into Big. You know, and there's a whole discussion to be had.
I mean, that freestyle is probably as well known, if not more well known, than some of the stuff off his albums.
Right.
Word. You know, and there's something to be said for like those records that aren't as widely available, but added to the lore of like Big. You know, those matter, those factor in. But yeah, I was basically wondering what your personal ranking of the OutKast albums would be.
Oh, I just jotted them down: Aquemini, ATLiens, Southern, Stankonia, and then Speaker Box, Love Below.
Oh, okay. So, oh wow, that's interesting.
And I mean, the reason for Aquemini is because I really never really I liked R&B music and slow jams, but that was like for my slow jam tapes for when a shorty came over. So I was never a big R&B dude like that, you know. And when Aquemini came out, I always say D'Angelo did it with Brown Sugar. Like he was the one who kind of got me to the point of like, okay, this R&B is kind of cool. Like his cat's like, yo, Brown Sugar, you know you're talking about weed, right? I'm like, word? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay. And then you hear shit damn motherfucker like, yo, you know this dude got a song about killing somebody after he slept with his girl. I'm like, yo, it's an R&B dude? Like, this is my kind of stuff. So D'Angelo kind of got me warmed up to that, and then came to Maxwell and that whole neo soul shit that I hate. It's just soul music. But that kind of got me open to be ready for Aquemini. You know what I mean? Because it's nothing but soul just dripping all throughout that. You know, ATLiens. I mean, I was actually living in Atlanta when that came out, which was an incredible experience. Like to be in Atlanta when that was out, yo, it just I can't even explain that. Southern was crazy to me, but I won't even front. I kind of slept on it when it first came out. I like the singles, Get Up, Get Out, you know, Southern Playalistics, all that. But again, I wasn't ready for that funk and ride, like that funk slop type stuff that I love now. At that time, I'm, you know, Boot Camp Click and Wu-Tang, you know, so that was a whole different vibe. Stankonia was dope. Speaker Box, Love Below, I love it. I love it because whoever, and this goes back to executive producers, if that was released separately as like, hey, here's Big Boy's solo album and here's Andre's solo album, no way it goes diamond, no way it wins for Grammy of the Year. Whoever said, okay, y'all two ain't getting along or whatever it was, y'all don't want to make music together anymore. Let's make it separately, make it a double album. You get an album, but we're still keeping it OutKast. Right. Whoever did that's a fucking genius, because I guarantee you, if they try to put that out as a Big Boy album and as a 3000 solo album, it doesn't work.
Be L.A. Reid, right, at the time.
Yeah, it probably was. You know what I mean? So whoever did that was incredible. But yeah, I agree. I think OutKast has the dopest discography. That's why I think.
I mean, you want to talk about doing something on the far left of experimentation at the time, sounds I've never heard before in music. Now, mind you, I now, you know, at my age now, I've heard Funkadelic, Parliament, Sly and the Family Stone, Prince. I've heard all this stuff, but I'm a kid, man. I like rap.
Right.
You know, like I'm not ashamed to say they were my gateway into funk.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even be a fan of DJ Quick if it wasn't for OutKast. They brought that musicality because coming from New York, I didn't think I wanted to hear something like that. Exactly. You know, I'm you know, like I just boom bap. That's it. My beat. That's it. Prodigy. You know, Razor Blade music. That's it.
It's funny that you say the sounds, because I'll never forget. I was working at the radio station and they sent us Rosa Parks. I played it, and I'm like, "Is that submarine sound when like the snare in Rosa Parks?"
Yeah, the
submarine sound, right?
Yeah,
like that's the sound you used to hear when in the old movies and they'd be looking up through the periscope, and I was just like, "Who does that? Like, who uses the submarine sound as a snare?" But and I always give Cash credit for it because people, I think Jay said it. The only people moving units is M Pimp Juice and us. But I always say with Jay, he was moving units, but he had to move units based off of who was the hot producer at the time. So when Swizz was popping, he was with Swizz. When Pharrell was popping, he was with Pharrell. With Timbo, OutKast has always done their own thing. You know what I mean?
Organized noise,
right?
Mr.
Organized noise,
Andre 3000. That's it.
Themselves as Earth Tone, but nobody else can really just say like we didn't need a big name producer to help co-sign us or to construct. We just did what we wanted to do, and y'all just rocked with it. And I know a lot of people who liked them for their first 2 albums, and then was like, that's when Andre. Because see, when they first came out, they was just 2 dudes from Atlanta, Georgia. Dre wasn't dressing weird or nothing like that, So I got it. A lot of my people's on my block in Philly and just around the way was like, yo, man, what's up with your man? Like, he wearing wigs and stuff. Like, people look crazy. So a lot of my people, my street dudes, fell off with them. And I get it. Like, the dude looks like a freaking weirdo. Like, you know what I mean? Me and my man would joke. He would be like on David Letterman with like football shoulder pads on, a blonde wig, and shorts. Like, he looked crazy. So I get it. Dudes from freaking the projects ain't checking for OutKast, but the great thing was I felt like for all the fans they would lose, they gained more fans. You know what I mean? So you may have some fans who love Southern Playalistic and ATLians. I have diehard hip-hop heads in my circle who have never heard anything after ATLians. They've never even listened to Equipment. And I'm like, bro, you're missing. They're like, we don't care. Dude is weird. I don't mess with him, which is why I love the Equipment so much, because the way 3000 set it off with Return of the Gangster, and even when he's like, when he says something like, what's up with your man, Andre? Is he cold? Is he gay? Is he high? He says something like, I'm feeling better than ever. What's wrong with you? Like, I just loved him attacking that. Like, dog, ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm feeling better than ever. You know what I mean? And it was just like, yo, who sets off a song like that? And when you listen to Return of the Gangster, this is what, 98? And it's the same stuff that's going on 20 years later. You got enough money, but not enough to bounce these kids to the park or to the zoo. Like, it's the same thing that's going on with parents. And so, I mean, yeah, OutKast to me is just, incredible.
Not to mention the incredible synergy of being able to drop that album. I believe it came out the same day as Volume 2 by Jay-Z and The Love Movement by Tribe Called Quest, which is crazy.
It came out the same day as Brand Nubians follow-up album and Black Star's album.
Oh, and yeah, it's exactly the Black Star album. It was a crazy day.
Albums dropped on that one day.
Because I went to Virgin Megastore that day in 1998, and I could buy one album.
Right.
One. You know, like I had allowance money. I don't have money like that. I'm 11 years old. And not to mention, they got these parental advisory stickers on the damn CDs now. So I already have to convince my dad, like, I need you to buy it for me with my money.
Right.
You know? So it's going to be an exchange of, whatever. Yo, I got to be honest, man. I almost bought that Volume 2 because that's what I came there for.
Right.
And I saw the cover, and Jay is in front of like the Rolls Royce, and he's got on a suit. I'm just like, damn, this guy is cool.
Right.
He's like James Bond. He's like a black James Bond. Jay-Z, Hard Knock Life. Put on the little headphones. Remember, they used to have the booth where you could listen to the CDs right there on the spot. I put it on. I said, what number is Hard Knock Life? There it is. Boom. Listen to it. Yeah, this is what I need. Then out of the corner of my eye, I see that artwork for the OutKast. And I go, what is that? I didn't know what it was. I never heard OutKast. I'm from New York. They don't put that on the radio out here. So long story short, I go over to the CD station and I start listening to it. And Return of the Gangster comes on after You May Die.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just like, wow. I just grew up. I'm 11 years old, but I just grew up. Something about this. Hey, Dad, I want this one.
Right.
Because here's the thing, I heard that J, and when I was skipping through it, I heard Swizz Beatz on the Casio. I love Swizz Beatz, by the way. I'm not shitting on him.
Right.
His early stuff, I'm not a big fan of. I got to admit. I like him once he brought the whistles and the bells and the air horns out, like Cassidy. I'm a hustler. T.I. bring him out. That's not till like 04. So at this time, I'm hearing Swizz and I'm just hearing cheap sounds. Then I hear OutKast and I just hear like the sound of like the heavens opening up.
Right.
It's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. So I said, I want this. I didn't know who the hell these guys were. Luckily, they turned out to be quite a impactful and important group in hip hop.
Right.
But yeah, man, I mean, I love them so much. I bought Speakerbox Love Below clean version the day it dropped because I got to Sam Goody too late. And they were sold out of the explicit, but I wouldn't take no for an answer. I had to buy it at an inflated $18.99 or whatever Sam Goody used to charge the disc. Man, and that's it. You were talking about a CD player, bro. I used to keep those CDs. I'd have the case with me, and I'd have 3 CDs at any given time. Right. It was either Speakerbox Love Below and Jay-Z's The Blueprint, or Speakerbox Love Below Obi Trice, something. There was always 3 CDs because that's how I would just carry my Speakerbox Love Below CD around. And that was when, albums would drop and you sit there and you make sure you got your money's worth out of these albums. You heard them so many times that even if something, I got Come Home With Me by Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh man, I don't think I like this album as much as I thought I would. A couple songs, yeah, but some of these, not so much. Right. I listened until it's like I forced myself to like them or something. But you just listen enough times and you soak it in. And it's like that magic that I feel like I don't get that much anymore when you press play on an album and it sounds unlike anything you've ever heard. And yet it still sounds familiar enough that is dope. It's not so out there. There's still, you get that with like OutKast, a little bit with Missy, some with Kanye. Right. Guys who can go left of center, who can do something adventurous and still come back and write a dope chorus, make a dope song. Right. So that's why I love OutKast so much. Kill, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you again at some point.
Thank y'all. And y'all got to come on Apartment 5B, man.
Oh my God, I would love to.
I'm down.
That would be a pleasure.
Yeah, we got to make that happen, man. So thanks for having me, man. I appreciate y'all for real.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you. And guys, remember, if you want to know more about Kill, just go to willmakebeatsforfood.com. That's willmakebeatsforfood.com. Kill, you got any plugs for him before we go?
Real quick, me and my man Jamal Gasol have an album coming out this Tuesday, May 14th. No Joy Without Pain. It's half produced by me, half produced by my man Keystar. Me and my man Vern Hayes out of South Central LA have a song called Hanging out right now. Well, it's called Hanging, and it's out. And it's basically just a joint salute Nipsey Hussle. You know what I mean? I felt like he's a great dude who was doing so much stuff for the community. I always tell people I got put on to Nipsey through hearing about him opening STEM centers for kids in South Central before I even heard his music. So I loved his movement and what he was doing as a man way before I heard the music. So my man Vern being from South Central, we did a joint together. My man Muse, follow him at VA_MUSSIE. He is a problem, 17 years old. He's got a joint out right now called VA, produced by me and Professor H and my man Vegas. We just finished our 4th album. We got it. Keep Calm. We Brought Friends. And our first single is a joint called Old Brooklyn. But like you said, just go to Will Make Beats for Food. Everything I do up there, hit beats, all the beats, hit podcast, all the episodes of Apartment 5B. Look at some videos I've directed. Got 200 free mixtapes up there you can download. So it's a one-stop shop for everything. So again, man, just thank y'all for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right, y'all.
Peace.
All right, peace. That went very well. I'm gonna stop this now so that we got it. All right.